Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Prespective. The political situation vis-a-vis who will chair the Public Accounts Committee of such an important post usually goes to the opposition. Looks like the government wants to give it to the opposition, but how will it pan out when the opposition itself will be a judge in its own right, in the sense that criticizing its own decisions, its own earlier decisions while in the government. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the by-elections, the preparations, what kind of a turnout can we expect, and what kind is it as usual, will it go to the government? What can we expect? We'll be talking about all of that. I have with me Shuakat Piracha Saab, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for being with us, Shuakat Saab. Javed Rana Saab, who's a journalist. Thank you for joining us. And Nasir Jaffery Saab, who's also a journalist. Thank you for joining us today. Shuakat Saab, what do you think? How does it look as far as the chairmanship of this very important position is concerned? Do you think that it will go to the opposition as per what is usual, what happens usually?
You know, it has a background as to why it was agreed to be handed over to the opposition, because the politics of 1990s was the politics of confrontation between PPP and the PMLN.
Right.
When they had a charter of democracy, they decided that if, for example, a government party member is
Right.
Elected or elevated to be the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee,
Right.
there is a danger of victimization of the opposition.
Right.
So, the intention for this mechanism was that since the two main political parties, they have been victimizing each other in 90s, they thought that by this adjustment, the element of victimization will not be there.
Right.
So, precisely this was the reason as to why they thought that the
chairmanship
PAC
should
chairmanship should go to the opposition leader, but
Right.
it has not always been followed. When
Right.
People's Party was in the government and Chaudhry Nisar Ali Khan quitted from being PAC chairman, then you remember Nadeem Afzal Chand Saab used to be the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee.
Right.
So it's not a constitutional provision or constitutional obligation that the
Right, of
chairmanship of the Public Accounts Committee
Should definitely.
must go
It's
to
more a
the-
tradition.
It's more a
Of late.
tradition on the basis of that understanding that if the government party member becomes PSC chairman, there
Right.
could be some fear of victimization. Now, you are very right. The comment is very right, whosoever is making, that if Mia Shahbaz Sharif becomes chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, then how they will, scrutinize the spending of the last 5 years when they were part of the government.
Right.
But it's not only the chairman
Right.
that has
The members,
power.
of course, the members.
And in the committee, whatsoever the committees are of the parliament,
Right.
the membership or the composition is on the basis of their proportionate representation in the National Assembly.
Right.
So, if this National Assembly has the majority of the ruling party, their membership will be more than the membership of the opposition.
Right.
If an opposition member is nominated and then elevated to become the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I think credibility of the government will be more established in a way that, look, we are not afraid of anything opposition member is heading, but their
But their own
membership
membership
is there.
Right, but what about, coming to you Javed sir, but what about the fact that, they will, you yourself said, and it is a comment that you made, that they will be judging their own decisions, they will be, judging their whatever mistakes, if they've made the mistakes or the pros or the cons or whatever has happened. In that sense, they will be sitting judgment on their own decisions.
I think it's a bit unique situation. We have a political party, ruling political party, which has for the first time come into power in Islamabad. They have a federal government, and that means their past is clean.
Right.
There is a possibility that some of their leaders who are sitting members of the parliament or minister, previously they were associated with the other governments. So there is a possibility of an individual leaders from the ruling parties might have some sort of allegations. I don't know, but for the sake of the argument, I'm saying this.
Right.
So I think the fact that the government has come up with the agenda to get rid of corruption and crack down on the corrupt elements. It is a unique situation. A unique situation in the sense that if the chairmanship is handed over to the opposition, which in this particular case, Shahbaz Sharif or PMLN,
Right.
then I think most of the paras from the accountant general will be coming from the PMLN. So how could they be judged in their own case?
Right.
Though this has been a tradition, and that tradition was basically based on an
Right, like
agreement
Shuakat said.
between two political parties. So I think this.
You think it's better that they
It is
retain
better.
it?
It is better to appoint somebody who is who even if he is not from the ruling party, if he is from the opposition party, he should not be from the PMLN and the People's Party. Or if they go for the ruling party, at least the man who is going to be in charge of the Public Accounts Committee, he should know what accounts, and he should have some economic background. He should have some essential understanding how things happen. So that is important. So let's see how things are going to unfold. But this is a decision which at the same time is going to set a precedent. That would also means that the tradition that has been coming
should be
for
carried.
last couple of years, that would be reversed, and from now onwards, every ruling party is going to have its own member as the head of the Public Accounts Committee.
Right. Nasir Saab, eventually the decision does lie with the government, whichever, as far as today is concerned, it's the PTI, and they are to decide whatever they do decide. But in your opinion, like Javed Saab is also saying, as the matter of tradition, as of showing a goodwill to the opposition, I guess it's an important step in that stead, even though, they will be giving, like I said, it will be their own decisions that they'll be judging, but it's an important step for them to establish that kind, or to show that they have, the good faith between the opposition and the government, is it not?
I believe that, as Javed Rana has just said,
Right.
it's quite a unique situation.
Right.
Because if PTI appoints a person from ruling party as
Right.
chairman PAC, there will certainly be noises, voices.
Right.
And if PMLN is given a chance to get the slot, again there will be a hue and cry from the ruling party and
Right.
as well as the other opposition parties.
Right.
So actually the gesture of goodwill is something, but if it goes to opposition, it will really be a difficult situation for the ruling party also, because you cannot simply hand over the slot to either to PMLN or to PPP, because the decisions taken by these two parties in the past few years will certainly be under scrutiny.
Right.
I feel that either the chairman should come from the ruling party itself, because as the party has been saying all along that they want to actually wipe out corruption from the country, and they have been speaking about their plans in this regard. So there should be a chairman from PTI, or I don't find, if I am wrong, Javed Rana is also a very senior correspondent, he can correct me. There should not be a problem in appointing a person, neutral person from the independent desks also.
Who is part of the opposition?
Who is part
then
of
who
the
can be such a person?
There is a person, we will have to see who this person is, because certainly, as Javed Rana pointed out, that a person with at least
Economic
insight
background.
on economic problems, issues, and how to correct the imbalances. So that kind of a person, ruling party will have to find out
Although
from
one would
within the house.
expect anybody who's been in the government for the past, more than a decade would probably know anyway. But Shuakat Saab, do you think that, what kind of, can you give us a name of such a person?
I did not suggest even that should be from the independent
No, but
party.
if it were to be,
No,
that is the question.
Listen, it's not only the chairman or the members,
Right.
Lately, for over a decade, this has been a practice that
Right.
during the proceedings of the Public Accounts Committee meeting, media is allowed. So it's a wider spectrum.
Right, right.
Chairman person, whether
So you're
it's
saying
from
the room to actually not,
exactly
take is very little.
So it's not a big contention that the heaven will fall if it comes from the government or from the
So perhaps it's a good
opposition
idea
party.
to extend the gesture, do you think? What's
That
your
has
opinion?
been, you know, what I am saying is, if for example, like the parliamentary commission for probing this alleged embezzlement of the election, the rigging, you know, that has gone to the government. The
You're
defense
saying that it's
minister.
not really that big a deal anyway.
That's what
because-
I am exactly
right,
saying.
Right.
Secondly, at the moment in the National Assembly, there are no independent benches.
Right.
Either they are part of the government alliance, because
Or
it
they're
was
not.
hard to,
Right, that's what I was coming
find
to.
out the
Right.
numbers.
Right.
It got 176, you know,
Right.
by clubbing everyone who was on the sideline.
Right.
BNP is there, MKM is there, you know, then PTI itself is there,
Right.
QLEG is there. On the other side, the rest of few parties, they are on the opposition, you know.
Right.
So practically or technically, either they are in the opposition or they are on the treasury benches.
Right.
I'll say, when media is there covering the whole proceeding of the PAC, and otherwise, you know, for these facts and figures,
Right.
they are always available to media.
Right, right.
Secondly, if the tradition, they go by the tradition, then some opposition member or opposition leader, as it has been, I don't think anything will go wrong, you know.
Even
But
if they do,
certainly,
give
you
it.
know, the numbers of the government party, the ruling party or the ruling alliance will be more than the opposition members
Right.
in the composition.
Right.
It's
So it
not a
may-
big deal.
Right, it's not. Javed sir, do you think, let's talk about the by-elections. How do you see that? There are going to be a lot of by-elections, in the sense that, you know, in this election particularly, I'm sure we've spoken about this before also, you know, if we talk about Shehbaz Sharif, we talk about Imran Khan himself, we talk about a lot of, you know, seats were retained, five constituencies. So there are going to be by-elections on a lot of these. How do you see that, you know, how will it turn out? Will it be like it always is, the government getting most of?
I think there is a higher possibility that the government is going to probably win most of the seats. At least they are going to win the seats that they had won previously.
Right.
But again, there is no hard and fast rule that this is going to happen. The turnout is likely to be low turnout, also because of the fact that there is no more suspense. Though these by-elections are very important for the ruling party, because they need to strengthen their existing numerical strength in the parliament.
Right.
That's extremely important.
Because, you know, the numbers are quite close.
Quite close. So they need to retain their seats.
Right.
But we should not forget that what happened in Lahore on Khwaja Saad Rafiq seat.
Right,
It's
right.
very thin margin.
Right, right.
And
when there will be the by-election, which
and that is very interesting to see what is going to happen there. But the bigger challenge for the PMLN.
and what about Hamza Shehbaz Sharif's speech and the fact that the PMLN seems to be gearing up? They seem to be, you know, of course, I mean, it's a huge constituency for them. Lahore means a lot to the PMLN. How do you see that?
I think the bigger challenge is about the turnout. Why on that by-election day people would come out in the same number as they
did in the general
in the general elections.
But that
So-
might prove more troublesome for the government.
And when people on the streets know that their vote is not going to make any
Really,
big
right,
difference.
right.
So I think if the which I don't expect the turnout is going to be as high as it was previously. So anybody can win, but there is a probability that the ruling party may win, because there may be an element of disappointment among the workers of the PMLN, because they know their vote is not going to be actually registered when it comes to the power politics.
Right. But what about the recent decisions vis-a-vis the you know, as far as the economic, the bill as financial amendments are concerned? Don't you think that there is maybe there's going to be a reaction about that also for the ruling?
I think the reaction may not be there, because unless people receive their gas bills, so there would not be reaction. And then they have obviously increased, and that was a pent-up increase, because that was held for the last couple of years, something which
Right.
was supposed to happen long before. But again, since the gas bill of this increase is going to be received maybe by the end of November,
So
in the early November.
Right, so government can
So
escape.
the government probably would escape that kind of scenario. But there, I have seen a lot of propaganda from the PMLN side about
Right,
this gas
right.
increase in
That's
the gas
why,
price,
yes.
and they are exaggerating, though there is increase, but not as much as they are portray in the social media. Supposedly, I don't know, but that kind of some of the posts I've
Nasir, what do
seen.
you think?
I think this increase that was announced in on certain items was inevitable because the prices or the inflation was artificially capped especially during last 1 year of PMLN, because elections were to be held and they wanted to win their people, they wanted to win
But do you
votes.
think there's likely to be a reaction?
I don't think. I don't think there will be a reaction because people realize that this was something that was inevitable.
Do they, Nasir Sahab? Because we're seeing a lot of criticism.
You are right. You are right. The only problem, the criticism is there because the government is not trying to basically apprise the people of the circumstances that actually led to this increase.
Right.
This is something that the government would have done, should have done much before. And if there is any reaction during by-elections, it will be from the people, mainly because people are not aware of the very difficult economic situation that Pakistan has been or is facing. The good thing is that you have to take your people into confidence that what is the situation, why government was forced to actually increase these prices.
Shuakat Sahab, do you think that the government, I will come back to you, Shuakat Sahab, do you think that the people are not aware of the financial problems of Pakistan, considering the fact that we have been hearing about it for the longest time? We were hearing about it even through the PMLN government when the PTI was saying what the situation is. Even after that, the Prime Minister addressed Pakistan and everyone, and he's been telling people that this is what the situation is. It's far worse than what I think was expected as far as our financial situation is concerned. With his decision not to go to the IMF, we know what the situation is. You think people realize?
You're talking of the people at the mass level. You're talking, since you are clubbing it with the by-election, so by-election mean 30 seats, all over. 11 are the National Assembly seats and 19 in different provinces, At the mass level, it's not thought about intellectually that since the government inherited financial problems and
it's not thought about.
No, it's never thought about. People want relief, whose burden is increased every month. They will not think that since they got.
But they've just come in. The government has just come in. It's been 30 days. Do you think the people expect them to waive?
You are right.
Please go
this is Shuakat Piracha has very rightly pointed out. This is the problem, that when we talk of people, we don't even realize and consider what is the intellectual level of our people, common man on the streets. We have to actually inform them. And as far as this thing
how
is
do you
concerned,
suggest that
basically this is job of the government. Basically this is job of the media managers of the government.
The media has been criticizing, has started to criticize the
this
new
is
government.
This is the problem. I'm coming to that point also. Basically people don't realize that the government has just come in. It is just little over 1 month that they have been in the government. It will certainly take some time to help them settle down. The only problem is that media is also part of this society. So we can find same reflections on in our media also. They started criticizing PMLN. Similarly, the social media is very active in Pakistan now. They have started criticizing Imran Khan. What I say is that when you have brought him into power, let us give him chance. Give him at least 6 months and see what can he do for this country. And I mean, he does not have a magic wand in his hand that he will just move his wand and everything will change.
He said, when he spoke to the bureaucracy, he said, give me 2 years and I will change Pakistan.
Certainly, these problems that have been there for decades will not settle down in just a couple of months.
Right, and it's been 30 days, not even a couple of months. Ji Shuakat sir.
You know, who made this hype? Who raised expectation?
Media.
We should also keep in mind
Not PTI.
that when it was PTI, you know,
Right.
it was PTI through media bombardments that we are for change, we will bring change, and change
But to
will
be
be
fair,
rapid.
I mean, for any government or any opposition,
Again, you know, what we are trying to explain is that, for example, for this month, if your pocket is overburdened by 15,000, for example,
Right.
and your income is 25,000, then would you believe or would you continue to believe that since Imran Khan has been brought in power just for one month before, so I should give time to Imran Khan?
why
to
not? All the greater nations of the world have done it. Why can't
you not
Pakistan?
at the
you are talking of the people who are of lower middle class, who hardly make up their, you know, pockets to meet up the expenditures, and expenditures are not something lavish. They don't travel on helicopters or aeroplanes, you know. If the electricity bill is increased by, for example, 2,000 rupees, then transport charges by
matters to
1,000 rupees, then these kitchen and the vegetable, you know, everything is soaring up, you know. Do you expect that a person who is earning only 20,000 rupees, if additional 5,000-6,000 are added in his expenditure, he will not think, you know, please, he will never think that since the government has just come into power, because partly when they were in the opposition, any government, you know, and particularly this party, when it was in opposition, they were trying to let the people see the daydreams, you know, that okay, once we are in, you know, everything will be changed. And you say, you very rightly say that it takes time. I also believe it takes time.
Right.
But what are the promises? And then, you know, so many contradictions, they are already exposed. Not easier for
What
the by-elections.
Shuakat sir,
Pardon me?
what contradiction?
For example, why IMF option is there? When we say that when the party overwhelmingly, you know, conveyed to me as citizen of Pakistan that we will not go to borrow anything. Why today the team is there, you know, for the last 2 days the team is there. These many things, for example, you know, somebody
Maybe
asked,
there's no option.
then why you made
No,
promises?
his point is very.
Why you made promises? Today, you know, in the Supreme Court, the question was that when you were in the opposition, you used to say that the petrol prices, for example, 40 rupees per litre,
Right.
and the government is charging over 80 rupees. Why additional surcharges and additional taxes are there? Today is being questioned. Why Petroleum Minister was called in the Supreme Court today was basically this question. Your promise was there that we will minimize the taxes and will remove, you know, the additional surcharge and Neelam Jalam charges and the PTV license charges, you know, imposed on every electricity bill. Nothing happened, nothing changed. I mean, if today these questions are being asked in a polite manner,
Right.
tomorrow the tone and tenor of the people may be different.
Javed sir?
I think running a political party and running a government is altogether different.
Right.
They are two different domains. While you are being in the opposition, you can criticize everything because you are not going to make any changes in the.
Right.
Now, situation has become very different, and partly it is because of the PTI's own rhetoric during the election campaign, holding the then government responsible for the all economic mess they created. They are right, but being in the government means altogether different. You need to generate revenue, no matter in what
Do you
manner.
think what about
So,
the austerity measures?
I think they are more symbolic in nature, and I think partially that also runs the risk of low economic growth. And we have also now heard predictions from the IMF and the other donor agencies that they're going to be probably 5.1 or 5.2 growth rate. And that means less opportunity, employment opportunity for the youngsters, something the PTI has promised. They promised to create 10 million jobs that is again something easier said than done.
Right.
So on economic front, the still government is denying that they are not going to approach IMF. But I think the fact that the delegation is in Islamabad, so PTI seems to have IMF as an option, because had it not been the case, they would not have started the process. So they are keeping it as one of the option. And if that happens, that would be a recipe for disaster, politically speaking. Because after coming into power, I mean, before taking oath.
But isn't it normal to have expected the government, not about the IMF, but generally, once they were in power, to change their mind about things? Once they take stock of the situation, once they realize.
I think they are learning on the job.
On their feet, right,
On the
exactly.
job, and
Right.
they have realized how difficult it is to run the government.
Do you think they
No,
underestimated?
I think there are two major issues.
Right.
First is on economic side.
I'm going to go to Shuakat Saab because I can
If
see that there's, right, once
I
you
could
finish.
probably they'll have to go to IMF.
Right.
If not IMF, then they'll have to take loan from some friendly countries.
Right.
I don't expect that.
What about the Saudi Arabia is giving us
again,
money?
how much time it is going to take? Because that investment will take time, and Pakistan probably would be needing at least $8 to $9 billion within the next couple of months.
Right.
And then I think there has been a lot of rhetoric also about the bringing back the looted money.
Right.
Again,
Do you think how, okay, before I go to Shuakat Saab, do you think it's practical in your opinion? As Nasir Saab.
yeah.
you know?
Well, as I said earlier, and as Javed, Rana and Shuakat Piracha pointed out, that there are certain areas where government will surely face lot of difficulty. To bring this plundered money means that most of the wealth basically sits
Out of the
outside
country.
of the country,
Which means
in Switzerland,
Right.
for instance, let us say. So they have certain procedures. You will have to talk to their
And
judicial
depends what
officers.
and we have no such agreements with them.
Yes,
So,
and moreover, your case gets weak because you also, on your request, these cases were closed
Exactly.
when NRO was issued. So this is something where they will have to face problem. And as Shuakat and Javed Rana pointed out, this was one of the very weak areas of this government. I consider it as a very weak areas, that they made very big claims before coming into government, without realizing the gravity of the situation that they would have to face after coming into power. So people pinned on lot of hopes with this government, that they would reduce prices, they would do this, they would do that, and that is something not happening at the moment.
Right.
So this was one of the major
Right. Shuakat Saab,
areas.
you've been wanting to say something.
I mean, gap is there, obviously.
My question is that, see, when we talk about revolutions, or we talk about, even if we don't talk about revolutions, we talk about political histories of governments. Why can't we be like South Korea, for example? You know, where people ate, you know, dogs, for example, where, you know, people are willing to make sacrifices for nations to grow. You know, on the one hand, we talk about Naya Pakistan, we talk about change, and we want that change. But on the other hand, you know, of course it's going to be difficult. You're right that, you know, we have our people are below poverty line, most of them, you know.
I respect your ideal that
Right.
the nation, they sacrifice, they contribute.
Right.
But why in case of Pakistan, only the people from the lower middle class or lower classes, they have to sacrifice?
Right.
This you go to attend the parliamentary session, on one hand there are all big beautiful cars, you know, though not the government one, people own, but these people should sacrifice. No, tax imposed again on the salaried class, the ceiling enhanced of the salaried class. How much tax net has been broadened? No. Filer, they have been excluded, non-filers have been excluded from the purchase of property or cars. Is it a concession, or is it is bringing back more people in the tax net? You know, these, as one of my friends said, the austerity was more a symbolic or or he was short of saying, you know, cosmetic, you know, because selling out 8 buffalo, is it going to finance the dams or other things, you know? On the symbolic value, this is very good that you are just relieving the extra expenditures, but our problem, our challenges are different. Selling out the buffalo is not going to regenerate the resource generation process in the country. It needs you know, policies that will reignite and bring back the investment.
Like
For example,
broadening the tax net.
like broadening the tax net, but the new tax scheme, you know, if you are excluding the non-filers, are you really serious in broadening the tax net? No. If you are bringing in the salaried class and imposing higher ceiling of the taxes, are you going to sacrifice as a nation, or just, you know, pulling more from the salaried class, which is, by the way, already paying taxes? I mean, if less than 1 million people pay taxes out of 22 crore people, then are we serious with ourselves, or we are making mockery of ourselves? You know, these measures, these steps, these initiatives, they are not going to increase the GDP growth. They are not going to increase the employment opportunities. You know, some serious thoughts on the economic outlook, on the economic front. We hear that Saudi Arabia is going to invest
Right.
in Pakistan.
Right.
If that investment is there,
They
as
have
you were
pledged some
pointing
money.
out,
Right.
you know, that will be very good, very good. If not in the immediate terms, but in the medium terms, if that investment can create at least the massive employment
But
opportunities,
Shuakat, you
very
have
good.
to give the new government time to go to find what other to go to the other resources, to try to find other resources, so that those loopholes can be plugged if they don't want to go to the IMF, right?
It was at the stage when they were in the opposition. I mean, any government, any party, when it's in the opposition, they have the shadow cabinet, they have the all plannings. But now, you know, in a month, you know, for example, now yesterday Prime Minister of Pakistan, he chaired a meeting on the 5 million, you know, housing projects, and said that next month they will come out. When they were in opposition, this whole planning should have been there, you know. 30 days are gone. Less than 60 days are there when we say that 100 days, you know, 100 days, 100 days. If 100 days pass like these 40 days, then, you know, I'm sorry, I will not be able to hold
I
my
think-
comment.
Javed
I
sahab,
think-
don't you think Shuakat sahab was expecting a magic
I think
wand?
I think we are too much critical
Right.
for a government which has been into
Yes.
powers for just 30 days.
30 days.
I think there are also successes which the government has made,
What success?
and that is
Let's
on the
talk about
on the
that.
foreign policy front. I think right in the beginning there could have been a huge domestic crisis when this Dutch
Issue
was raised,
Of course.
and it was very amicably handled. And I think it was for the first time Pakistan was seen that it is leading the Muslim world, and the credit goes to Pakistan's foreign policy. That is very important because you know the people in West, particularly in Holland, they don't understand the sentiments that people here in Pakistan and elsewhere in the Muslim world has. Earlier on, Turkey used to lead on issues like this. This time, I think
Pakistan
for the
did.
first time I'm
Right.
seeing in my journalistic career that this government has led it.
Right.
And then I think the visit to the UAE and particularly to the Saudi Arabia is a success story. It's a success story politically and also economically. Politically in the sense
Because
that
they've pledged that money to us, and economically,
politically,
more importantly also.
I think they have made it a point they are not going to support former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif in any possible behind the scene wheeling daily.
But Javed sahab, that was not really the issue.
But again, for the government, it is an issue. Again, the other bigger issue, the Saudis are going to invest in Pakistan. $10 billion is a reasonable money. I mean, if that money pumps into Pakistan's economy over the period of next few months, Pakistan may not be needing to resort to the option of approaching IMF. So, and Saudis are going to spend money in the 3 major energy projects. That is a success story. Now, we are judging this government on day-to-day basis. And sometimes I think that would not be a fair business. But again, if in next 3 months, this government is going to set a direction. We are not
Which
going
is
to,
also very important.
which is very important. We are not going to see a major changes on the streets because of this government.
Why? The
you see,
major change is what is expected.
in 3 months, you see, in
Right.
3 months. We need to make an assessment after 3 years, 2 years. Now they are just setting the direction.
Which is what Imran Khan
Austerity
said.
measures again are symbolic, but they are very important because that shows the mindset of the ruling party. And here the quantity of the money, the amount doesn't matter. But again, that
But
reflects
Javed
the.
Sahab, to Shuakat Saab, it's really, according to him, and we have to concede, and I think that the point is that when people who are already under the tax net, very heavily burdened, barely making ends meet, that is what Nasir Saab is also saying. And they are going to be subjected to more taxation.
There is again too much generalization.
Right.
You see, not in the non-filers, it would also means how a widow is going to get her property, how that property is going to be transferred. He doesn't know what is his filer and non-filers. There are practical difficulties. So there has to be a mechanism whereby the government does not resort to cause difficulties for the common people.
Right.
Now, there is one point which is very important, which the opposition parties have raised, and that is about these properties, dealers, these real estate business. I think they should not be given any exemption. These people in the business of selling cars, they should not be given any exemption. There were genuine concerns about overseas Pakistani. They should be given an exemption. And also the common people who don't have any their business. But if they are going to the district administrations and they have their small property issues, the issues of inheritance, and there you have to be there that you must be a filer. So I think expecting a common people, the poor people who don't have any information and understanding of these things, that they could be a filer, the government has to be particular about it. Overgeneralization, I think, is not appropriate. We need to see within the next couple of months how this policy is going to be streamlined. And I hope the government would come up with a better strategy whereby overseas Pakistanis are given exemptions, where common people who do not have any business, they are given exemption, even if for the sake of the argument, if there are 3-4 million filers. Right. That doesn't mean there's going to be, it's going to expand your tax net. Actually, what government needs to do is, and I think they have set a right direction when they said they are going to be the 100 businessmen who are the tax dodgers, and that means that the amount probably would be running into billions of rupees. Right. That is where government needs to crack down. And let's hope something good comes out of it.
And for that crackdown also they need time, to be fair.
They need time.
Right. Nasir Sahab, what about the other important issue as far as, agricultural tax is concerned, as far as, land reforms are concerned? That's also an important area where, people expect this government to work on.
Let us see what happens because first of all, this government will have to basically focus on ways to improve economic situation.
Right.
Because this agriculture tax and land reforms come after you are able to stabilize your economy. Number one, I have 2 or 3 points. I will still insist that let us give this government time and space.
Right.
Number 2, when we say tax, when we talk about tax net,
right.
We don't mean to criticize the government.
Right.
Basically, we want this tax net to be broadened because the entire burden basically comes on the salaried class. They have to suffer, and the people who should pay taxes actually hire consultants, pay them in millions and evade taxes in billions.
Right.
And at the end of the year or at the end of the financial year, again an amnesty scheme is announced to whiten their black
Right,
money, and again they get chance. So this kind of disparity should not be there. Rather, I would not call it disparity. This kind of injustice should not be there. The tax net should be broadened in a way that every citizen of Pakistan, no matter he belongs to salaried class or he is a businessman or agriculturist or whosoever, they should equally pay taxes and share
According to
equally
their
burden.
income.
Yeah.
Not equally, but
Not equally,
only
according to
in
their
their
income.
capacity.
That's
I mean,
what-
according
that's
to
what he
income,
means.
it's not that only
Proportional
the salaried,
to their-
salaried, yes,
exactly,
salaried class is
exactly,
paying
exactly.
taxes and
Ji Shuakat sahab, yes.
You know, when especially I say about filer and non-filer, you know, the government has given exemption at certain level. It's not the case that everyone is in the taxes, you know.
Right.
The poor classes or the people, you know, who do not earn much, they are already out
Right,
of the tax
there is,
net,
you know, there's
But
a upper bracket.
a person who is purchasing a car, for example, we are talking of the non-filer could purchase a car. Car mean millions, you know, not a common people, not a poor man,
Right,
you know.
that is true.
So when I say especially non-filer who can
But
buy
not
property,
necessarily
you know,
millions. I mean,
yeah,
there are-
a car, you know, a
be half
land, a
million.
piece of land, half a million means they have a half a million. But those people who is earning, for example, a clerk has a salary, you know, salary around 100,000, you know, or more than that, but has to pay indirect taxes, you know. If you don't get the tax, you get indirect. Everyone
Right,
is
that is
paying
true.
indirect tax.
It's
you know.
important, right?
70 to
Indirect
80%.
taxation is very important.
That's
when we
what
talk
I'm
about
saying,
this,
you
right?
know.
That is true.
So a person who can buy a car or can buy a piece of land is not going to pay taxes because of the condition being taken away of the non-filer. But a man, you know, having, for example, 200 rupees a day labor, you know, and he is paying taxes, this has to go away, you know.
Right,
It's not only loss of the revenues, it's injustice to the society.
that is true,
That only 0.8 million people they are paying taxes and rest of the
I
people.
think this term when we use that only 1 million, we do not, why don't we count the indirect taxes?
Right, that is very
That
important.
is very important,
Unfortunately,
yes.
yes, that is a very important point. I think indirect taxation is something the government
Everybody is
needs
paying
to,
taxes.
Right. And one expects Asad Umar to, of course, you know
Again,
these things.
the problem of perception. Those who are paying taxes, they should not pay the taxes, you know, because everyone is paying taxes 70-60%, which is indirect taxes. Those who have the capacity to pay tax,
They should
who
be
are
paying more
liable
taxes.
to pay
Right,
taxes,
right.
they are exempted. Only 0.8 million people they are paying taxes. Rest of the wealthy class, they are exempted from the taxes.
Right, right.
Yes, that is correct.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us, Shuakat Piracha Saab, Javed, Rana Saab, Nasir, Jaffery Saab. Thank you for your time. As far as the government is concerned, certainly it needs time to implement its initiatives, to set the right direction in which to take the country. We have to be patient, we have to give them time. And on the other hand, it's important for nations who want to progress, who are in positions of dire financial crisis, need to understand that sacrifices need to be made and they have to come at all levels. Let's hope that that happens. Thank you so much for joining us today on Prespective.